Hi everybody, welcome to one of our videos on advanced masking and blending. For this one, we've got kind of an interesting project here, and I thought at this stage I'd just give you a couple of samples and we'll kind of reverse engineer them a little bit. I won't go through absolutely positively step by step because you'll want to have some fun with these and do your own project and make your own experimentations. But here we go. This is a little multi-layered Photoshop image that I thought, say if we wanted to do a little nostalgia piece about ACC, um, who's spent some time around our lovely brick walls here at the Art and Design Center, and sort of superimpose another photo on there, um, and put the logo up top as if it's a kind of a cut metal, pin-mounted sign on the wall somewhere. And this could be an illustration that would go along with, something for the Alumni Association, something like that. Kind of a nice soft feel to it. And so how did we do this? Well, we started off with just this image of the bricks. There we go. Just a straight photo of the bricks out in front of our happy Art and Design Center, taken in the nice warm light of midday. And one of the things that I wanted to do was maybe neutralize this a little bit, tone it down, put it more in the realm of memory and nostalgia. So I put kind of a color overlay underneath. But you'll notice I wanted to play off of the bricks and have some imagery coming through the bricks. So even for this sort of neutralized feel, I put a layer mask on there. You could see if I put the color overlay over the entire thing, the mortar in between would start looking very blue, which was something I didn't want so much. So I created a little layer mask over top of that. Now, how did I do that? Let's take a look at that. Here's my original image, of course, and I can do a color range selection. First of all, color range selection, and that dialog box gives me some little eyedroppers, and I can click to select a color range. I've selected this kind of nice gray here in the bricks, and the fuzziness allows us to kind of expand or contract that selection based on color, not based on proximity, like feathering or expanding a normal set of marching ants. But this is based on color, and it's a kind of a gradual selection. Now, eventually it'll show up as marching ants, and they delineate that line at along about the 50-yard line of the percentage of selection. So the marching ants that you see aren't quite the color selection that you get. Rather, this grayscale image here that's the selection that you're getting. And so I can pull back and forth on fuzziness, and we can also add to the selection if I want to make sure that I've got all of the shades that are contained within those. I can do that. Now if I want to, I've got some sort of grayish bricks here. If I want to pull back the other way on fuzziness, maybe we won't include those quite so much, and I can concentrate on just the colors of the mortar here in between and work it that way. Let's see. There we go. That's not bad. And when I click OK, then I get the marching ants, you see, and it's at about that 50% line of what's selected and what's not. Now if I make a layer mask out of this, then we can see what's selected here. And of course I did the inverse of that, and as we talked about in some of the earlier masking videos, CS5 gives us this great masks dialog box, and if you don't have that, of course it's available under Window, Masks right there. And with that you can just invert the mask with a single click of the mouse, which is fantastic. Photoshop has needed that for a long time, and now we have it. So this is the mask that is created with that color range selection, and I'm going to delete that because I don't need it on that layer. I've already got that on these other layers. So I've put just a solid color here. I'll disable that mask so you can see it. On a layer right below the bricks, I've put, well, it's almost a solid color. I have the fill set at 31%. So it's filling with that blue color at 31% of its full strength. Here it would be if it were 100, just a regular old color background. And I'll set that back to 31% for the fill, and I'll reactivate my mask. Now here's that color fill with just the mask, but initially we kind of wanted the bricks on it, and so I've kind of neutralized the bricks. I've left the mortar intact. And so I wanted an image to show through. Now I've put a photo of a tree that I made. Let me disable the mask on there. There we go. And that's also got a reduced fill. Here's the, at full strength, I just went out and took a snapshot of this tree out here in the plaza at the Art and Design Center, and pulled back on fill to about 48. Well, let's leave that at full strength for now. But I did put an identical layer mask on there. Let's see that mask. There it is, and it's identical, oops, to this mask. So how did I accomplish that? Let's delete that mask by the tree, and I will option click on my layer 2 mask and drag it down to this tree layer. There it is. There's my mask. Identical mask placed in an identical location on this image. So here are these 3 images now. I've got that tree image in there, and it's a little heavy-handed right now. It's a little, solid on there, and frankly kind of spooky looking. If I were doing the classic Halloween haunted house poster assignment that we do in our Illustrator class, this kind of imagery might be a strong candidate. So that's why I pulled back on fill a little bit, and that's just on this layer with the tree. I pulled back on fill to 40-something%. Now that gives us a little softer, nostalgic look. And I also have my brick layer set on multiply. If it were on normal blending mode, there's what it would be. Just solid bricks, and all of this other work with my little color overlay and my tree would be behind a wall of bricks with, somebody from an Edgar Allan Poe story, I suppose. But we can do multiply. Now multiply takes this brick layer, and it's as if it's kind of printing over top of all the other layers with some kind of semi-transparent ink. That's a good way to think of multiply. Yeah, so that's the tree pictured in the bricks, but not the mortar. So we still get that illusion of the mortar. So we know it's not a shadow. We know this is something a little bit surreal. It's either been printed on the bricks, or it's sort of glowing there in our memory, that sort of thing. And about now, I decided, hey, let's put this ACC logo on here. And it's in a shape layer, so it's got yet another kind of device. Let's see if I can get... there's a kind of a vector mask, which we'll talk a lot more about next week in our lesson on vectors, but it's got some effects on there too. And some of you have done some work with shape masks, and you can create a shape mask in Photoshop with this shape tool, rectangles, ellipses, various custom shapes. You can also bring in some art from Adobe Illustrator and bring that in as a shape layer. And let me show you how I did that. Here was a selection in Adobe Illustrator. This has a white fill on it, which is why it appears to be invisible on the white page. But I've got it selected, and I just copied that to my clipboard, minimized that Illustrator window, went back to my Photoshop document, and pasted it in. And it says, hey, John, how do you want to paste this in here? Smart object, pixels, path, what? And one of the choices is a shape layer, which is what I wanted in this case. We can talk a little bit more about paths next week as well. We'll have a big lesson on vectors at that time because they can be lots of fun, particularly for those of you that are real comfy with the pen tool in Illustrator. So I'll paste it in as a shape layer, and there it is. That's very much the manner in which it came in, and I can move that around. And you'll see that these bricks have a little bit of perspective on them, just a little, even though it was kind of a straight-on shot. But you can take this shape layer and transform the path. It comes in as a kind of a path, but we can distort and just pull one corner down to kind of match up with the bricks. That's a little bit of an exaggeration there. This is a pretty subtle move. There we go, something along that line. Double click to apply that, and so that's what I did. I'll just delete that layer because you can see what was going on. And I chose a color of a kind of a neutral gray because I wanted to make some other effects on it. And here are the effects. I did a drop shadow, a bevel and emboss, a gradient overlay. Now you've probably heard me say the little warning about the drop shadow: don't go in there alone, and seriously don't. The drop shadow is a too easily used, too easily abused feature of the whole Adobe Creative Suite. But in this case, it fits to help us create our illusion. It's not just an easy ploy to get some sort of dimensionality on here that doesn't fit with anything. This one, we can make this fit with the sunlight and reinforce the illusion that this is some kind of metal cut sign that's pin mounted onto the bricks, and it's got a little space in between itself and the bricks. So we double click on this layer to get the effects dialog box. I've got my drop shadow, there it is, and you'll notice I may have given the speech about the Warner Brothers black hole. Remember the Roadrunner Coyote cartoons where the coyote would buy all kinds of little tools to end the Roadrunner's life, and one of which was the black hole, and he would have this little floppy piece of something, a plastic-like material. And he'd slap it onto the side of a rock, and it was supposed to be a hole, and the Roadrunner was supposed to run through it, and then he could remove it and have the Roadrunner embedded in rock forever. Sometimes I warn against using just plain old solid black for a shadow because it can create a black hole. So how did I get this color? Here's the color you can choose for your drop shadow, and you can eyedropper from your existing surface. Now sure, if you have black here and you pull back on opacity, it'll give you kind of a gray, which will give you kind of a shade of that. But in some cases, it's kind of nice to start off somewhere in the realm of that color. A little bit of colorization in that shadow might not hurt in some cases. Even so, I pulled back on opacity just to keep it realistic. And you can adjust the angle of your shadow and the size, so forth. Subtle moves are advised. I did put a bevel and emboss, a little bit of contour. Here's with and without. Hopefully it helps reinforce that there's some thickness to that object. And I did do a gradient overlay. And you can choose which gradient by double clicking. I chose this one that looks kind of metallic. You can also, by double clicking on there, adjust the curve of that gradient, the speed at which it gradiates. And of course we can adjust the angle as well, and the scale. So all that affects, how it looks in the end. And there we go, something along that line. So those were the effects that I chose. You can experiment with that and base your decisions on what is suitable for your image, what will help you tell that story of what's going on in this image. This image doesn't tell a story so much as it sets the tone for a story. Like I say, it feels, you know, a little bit nostalgic and so forth. Now, when I was preparing to do this video, I also thought, well, okay, what would happen? What would happen if these bricks just kind of went away? Oh, and then I got this nice blue thing, which kind of goes with the reflection that I put on this supposedly metallic logo. And I thought, okay, here's what's going on. I've got this mask on here. You can see I've got the tree, and I've got this mask on my tree. I've got the same mask on that blue overlay. What if I just put a white background behind it? So I did. I tried the white background. Well, that looks kind of cool in its own right, you know, and it might be. It's still just as nostalgic. It's a lot more surreal. We've taken the realistic bricks out of the picture completely, and this is a little more surreal, quite a lot more surreal. It's more kind of fading into memory, you know. So this might be another great solution for it. You know, which do you like, the bricks or the kind of the blue sky? And so it's kind of a fun way to do a little bit of imagery. That ends our first video. We'll have a couple of more demos in the next one. Thanks.